the challenge when you are making any action film is normally hiding the fact that your actor is not actually doing the stunt and that a stuntman is performing it for them. Uh, the opposite is true for Mission Impossible. We have an actor who does his own stunts, and we're constantly trying to develop technologies to show him doing it. And with speed flying, this was an extremely, extremely difficult challenge. How do you get a camera close enough to Tom to show that he's actually operating the speed wing? And at the same time, how are you far enough back from Tom that you see that this isn't being done with wires, this isn't some sort of a trick? And so we had to develop a gimbal system that another camera operator would be flying along with Tom while wearing. And so you had cameras hanging off of both sides that were then being operated by a camera operator who was following in a helicopter. All of this equipment did not exist. It all had to be designed and purpose built for the sequence. Very early on, I told Tom that I wanted this next installment of Mission to have a sense of adventure. I wanted to make a bigger film, a more global film, and part of that was making a more romantic film. And nothing felt as romantic to me as a train, particularly the Orient Express. And that, of course, when it collides with Mission Impossible, turns into an action sequence on a train, and it probably isn't going to end well for the train itself. Mission had done a train sequence before, all the way back in the first Mission Impossible. And a lot of that had been done on a stage. We wanted to do one that was practical. We wanted to build upon what was learned on that sequence and apply all of that knowledge to something practical and real. And that meant building a train where Esai Morales, who plays our villain, and Tom could be fighting on the roof of that train, and also how to wreck the train, how to wreck the locomotive. And in so doing, how do you keep that as a sequence? Once the train wreck happens, the sequence is over. How do we go beyond that? How do you have a train wreck happen so that you can stretch the event out? It's not one simple cataclysm, but many. That ambition evolved into what is now the train wreck in our film, and it quite literally is a train wreck happening in slow motion. It was an extremely, extremely challenging sequence, not just to execute, but also to design. It was working out the physics of what that would be, and then how to design all the different train cars and how to design all the equipment to shoot these stunts that we were creating. And we did not limit ourselves in the least based on whether or not something could physically be achieved. If we ran into an obstacle, we had to figure out how to overcome it. We didn't just allow ourselves to toss things out. And we created something that was quite challenging, quite challenging. The thing I love most about working with Tom is he pushes you at all times to do your absolute best. You find yourself doing things you could never have imagined possible, sometimes even the week before. I never set out to be a director. I certainly never set out to be an action director. I never, ever set out to be directing a film on this scale. And we're now at the point where you don't even have time to think about the scale of what it is you're doing. You're simply doing everything you can to finish the story you've set out to do. With Tom, there are no limits. And no limitations. He wants you to push him as much as he is pushing everyone else around him to do their best. Every film Tom and I make, including Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, involves taking all of the experience from all of the films we had made previously and applying it to this one. And with any luck and with a lot of great effort, every film should stand on the shoulders of the film that came before it. We often like to say we're not competing with anybody but ourselves. We're looking at the last film and figuring how can we outdo that. The secret ingredient to that is not trying to make a bigger, more spectacular film. It's trying to make a film that honors the films that came before it. You ideally just want to make a movie that belongs in the list with all of those other movies. And because we have acquired so much knowledge in the development of these sequences, many of which had never been done in quite that way, um, we feel a little more confident and a little more adventurous each time in terms of how far we can push ourselves, how far we can take it. Tom and I are most interested in you having the most immersive emotional experience possible. We want you to be as connected to the main character of the story as possible. And the more we do that practically, the more real and the more immersive that feels. There is something tactile, there is something unpredictable. We could not have predicted what the train looked like going off a cliff as realistically as it was depicted. For example, when that train launched off the cliff with cameras attached to the train, the rotation of the wheels created this strange sense of behavior in the cameras. Had we done it CGI, we never would have made that discovery. When we were on the gimbal and the train was bending in the way that it did, with all of the furniture behaving the way that it did, and there was grease on the floor. The actors are involved in something that is so unpredictable and so chaotic. There's an energy that you couldn't get from that had you just created it with CGI. The problem with CGI, and it's extremely useful in a lot of different ways, you get exactly what you want. And what we've learned from practical action, we very often don't get what we want. We get what mission gives us. We get what fate and circumstance and unpredictable physics give us. That gives you something real and chaotic and completely grounded that you couldn't get any other way. We lean into the chaos. The beauty of going and shooting in all of these different locations, we want to take the audience to places they might not otherwise be able to go. We want to transport you to another country and celebrate another culture, and hopefully inspire you to go there. We're very fortunate in that the places that we go are excited to have Mission Impossible come and show off their city, and we were not disappointed this time. We had a really warm welcome everywhere we went, and I think people were just very excited to see the world coming back to life. What I love most about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is that every single actor in the story has their moment. They all have a chance to showcase their extraordinary talent. They all have their moment to be at the center of the story. And this cast really delivered on a level that is so extraordinary. They all leaned into the process. They were all inventive. They all gave themselves over to the unexpected. And as a result, they each deliver something truly unexpected.
I had a great time working with both Haley and Rebecca, who are they're great. Because Haley's like a ruffian in a sense, like rough around the edges, where Rebecca's character has seen a lot of life and is just graceful, and even in her choices, she's just, they're wonderful people to play with and opposite. So for me, it's candy. And I got to tell you, shooting those scenes took a lot of energy. They're a real team, and I think they trust each other. They're grown-up boys, because they're boys at the end of the day. Boys in a sandlot of your dreams, your wildest dreams. You want to jump off a cliff 4,000 feet above the, Norwegian Alps or whatever you call that. Sure. You want to fly. You want to go. You want to do the impossible. We'll figure it out. We'll reverse engineer. They just have this kind of can-do attitude that makes you go, I may not know all of what's going on, but the end product is going to be satisfyingly great. That's the key. satisfy that audience, make sure they come back for more. Tom and Chris are such movie, goers, avid buffs, that they really, really went, beyond the distance to ensure that the big blockbuster on a big screen is still meaningful and has value. And movies are a form of our communities coming together, reminding each other why we're all human, because we react at the same time, usually to the same stimulus. Yes. It brings us together. And I hope that never goes away.
It's so surreal to have been a fan of this franchise and a fan of Chris McQuarrie's work and Tom Cruise's work. And then to be sat in a car on a set, handcuffed to Tom Cruise. And at one point I looked at him and I went, I'm in a Tom Cruise movie. And he, without pausing, went, no, I'm in a Hayley Atwell movie. He's so generous that way. He really bolsters people and he really wants to see them do well. And so with every kind of expression of excitement of being in this surreal world, from being behind the camera watching a Mission film to being within the kind of mechanics of a Mission Impossible film, there were lots of pinch me moments, and he had them with me along the way. I had 5 months of training. It was an amazing, very rare and unusual opportunity to be working with the kind of stunt team and prop masters and choreographers that Tom finds and discovers. They're really the best in the world at what they do. And so I was introduced to all these different disciplines, from mixed martial arts to working on a gun range with various different kinds of guns, various different props, and also doing unarmed combat. And what I discovered is that I had a natural ability and an enjoyment of doing fight sequences with props. That if you gave me 2 knives, I could actually speed up the choreography of the fight because I was using these props as an extension of Grace's mood. They gave me kind of anchor points and something more physically to do than just using my fist. Joining the gang as Hayley is a lot more fun than Grace joining the gang the first time, because she doesn't know what she's getting herself into and she is not convinced that they've got her back. So she's hypervigilant and on guard. But for Hayley coming into an already very established friendship group that Tom and Simon and Ving have had and enjoyed for many, many years, it's like it's incredibly welcoming, and it's also upbeat and it's fun, and they have lots of in-jokes based on all the experiences that they've had around the world for the many years that they've been working on these together. The thing I love most about working with Simon Pegg is there is this sweet spot where we can really make each other laugh. And that becomes quite dangerous when you're in the middle of a very important scene where the stakes are very high. But because he is so much of the comic relief as Benji, and because I've enjoyed watching him play Benji for so long now, being on the receiving end of that in a scene is it's hard sometimes because it's just so funny. And he's great at teasing, a playful teasing of me, and making sure that there's a levity and approach to it. So it can be very focused and very intense and very sincere set. But he's always there to, pull the rug from under my feet and make sure that I'm also having fun while I'm doing it. Ving has such gravitas. His presence is so, I find it very calming to be around him, because he has so much wisdom and so much experience in this industry, and such a force for good, and all the work that he does outside of being an actor and supporting the communities that he grew up in, to be this extraordinary person and devoting a life of service to other people. The thing that the world knows about Mission Impossible is it's all about the locations. That sets the visual language of the film. And every single film tries to top itself with and outdo itself with where it can go next, where are the locations that have not been seen on film or been able to be depicted in a particular way. And I would say that the locations and then the stunts become the sort of in the foreground of what the film will be. They become the ultimate backdrop that then dictate what the action is going to be, and also indeed what the story is. Tom loves to travel the world and to discover new, new cultures and communities of people, and find out what is unique about that particular location, and then sort of as a love letter to the location creates Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is a love letter to the incredible diversity of this planet. I knew when I got the job that there would be about a 5-month training period where it would be not that we were chasing a particular style or a particular aesthetic, but we were seeing where my natural abilities, strengths, and interests lie, and therefore creating a bespoke training program so that I could competently and safely do these stunts. And so the motto that I ran with, literally, was to be fit for purpose. So we tried lots of different disciplines, and what I felt most connected to was working with knives and working with more styles of mixed martial arts that were a lower center of gravity. Pom is incredible at these high kicks, and I found that I was much more of a wrestly kind of fighter and a scrappy one, and very fast with knives and with props. And so we use that as the character, and we use that as part of the training process, so that I was able to get to a level of competence where I knew that I was able to do certain stunts over and over again from different angles with dynamic movement. And I found that that whole experience changed my life, because it meant that I was able to start to put myself out of my comfort zone, but also be able to control my nervous system so that I was able to push myself further physically. What became very apparent early on in my preparation and my research and my training for Mission, without a script necessarily or particular anchor points of who my character was going to be, is Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise's drive, passion, commitment for the actresses that they employ coming in, or the actors that they employ coming in, to really play and to collaborate and to offer lots of different ideas, and to be fully seen and heard in them, and having great, honest, direct communication about things that we wanted to try or that I was confused about and needed clearing up on. They're so transparent in their process and very inclusive in that. And I felt incredibly safe. And I also thought, I want to come in and offer something new. I want to be offering something that hasn't been seen before in a Mission film, because it's already such a beloved and established franchise that I would have to offer something new. Otherwise, I'm either going over old ground, or it's already been done before, or the audience don't have a new emotional attachment to my character because it's the same. It's always been. And I knew that I wanted to try and elevate Grace out of just being one thing, or the representation of the new woman coming in, so that it felt much more expansive than that. Chris McQuarrie, he is a visionary. He is innovative. He's an amazing actor. He can perform the entire story for you in front of you over dinner. And he knows the points to make you cry, to make you laugh, to make you sit on the edge of your seat. It's like he's kind of understands the musicality of storytelling and how to hit all these beats. And then the next day, he can come up with a completely different version of what he wants the plot to be, and it can be just as good and detailed and captivating. Tom and McHugh's working relationship is forged over, I think, 16 years of friendship and a deep appreciation and understanding of film, the technical sides of it, but also about storytelling. And so I've come into their orbit at a time where it's so sort of finessed in terms of their language of how they communicate on a set, that they're finishing each other's sentences and they're sort of mind reading. Tom can go, "Hey, McHugh," and Tom and McHugh will be like, "Yeah, I agree." And you're like, "What? What was that exchange?" And they both challenge each other, and they're both very strong-willed, independent leaders, and yet they complement each other because it's a foundation of utter respect about what the other can do. And it's a symbiotic relationship that they come hand in hand. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This blows everything out of the water from what Tom has done before. His scale of ambition for this to be the most mind-blowing, gut-wrenching, physical, visceral experience of an adventure movie that gets to the heart of friendship and the good fight of triumph over adversity and the power of the human spirit. This is unlike anything that audiences will have ever seen before, because the technologies used to create it weren't invented until this was shot. Even on a technical level, audiences are going to have the ride of their lives. They'll want to see it in the cinema over and over again.
So 25 years ago, almost to the day, I get a call from my rep saying they want to bring Kittredge back, and I think it's a joke, of course, on some level. It's not. They want to bring him back. So what a thrill it is to dig around, find a character when you're in your 30s, and then get to go back and redevelop the character after so much apparent life experience and funnel that into the franchise. It's an absolute gift, especially with McHugh and Tom at the helm. So one of the great things about being offered a role in one of these productions is that the locations they shoot within are spectacular. Norway, Rome, Venice, London, which has been gorgeous as well. Kittredge was not involved in the Italian section of the shooting, but he was involved in the Norwegian section of the shooting, which was a thrill for me because years ago I learned to bring a companion with me when I go on location. The companion is a camera. And so that encourages me to look more closely at whatever environment I'm in, to try and be intimate with it through the lens. And Norway particularly has such a beautiful landscape to it. From Kittredge's perspective, the Ethan Hunt many years ago, his mission is the same. It's a personal mission of right and wrong, and I'm going to do whatever I can to promote an idea of compassion and rightness, which is very subjective, but I think most of us can feel what rightness is. And so his mission at that point, either it was a calling or whatever, is very clear that anything and everything will be done before I pass away to have that in the library of human experience for Ethan, a young one. That's still very much alive today. However, he's been through more of the spectrum of human endeavor, be it beneficial or the opposite of that. McHugh and Tom are a very dynamic duo in that I find Tom to be super focused and capable. I mean, the stunt people that I've talked to who have worked with Tom will tell me that he is among the most intelligent actors they've ever met in terms of their body and how their body works and where it is at a certain time. And his focus on the elements that surround him and his ability to bring them in and focus them on the task at hand is extraordinary. McHugh does the same thing, but with a different flavor. McHugh seems to be able to look at the big picture absorb what's coming at him in terms of the flavors, the set, the actors, what they're bringing to the scene in that particular take. And he's able to massage it, I feel, in a way that allows the audience to focus on all of those elements, like a Bach concerto, where if you want to, you can follow a single line of music and you can hear it throughout, or you can sit back and get the gestalt of it. And McHugh does that beautifully, and Tom is the more focused element in that piece of music, I think. So they work beautifully in that regard. But they are by no means, I think, similar. They are dynamic.
Yeah, I was overexcited to be part of the movie. It was one of my dreams to be part of the franchise, for sure. And I was actually training, stunt training and doing martial arts training in order to do, an action movie. And it's funny because in my schedule, sometimes in my iPhone, I would write Mission Impossible sometimes because it was like one of my dreams. So it was like, I wanted to manifest it, and it happened. So I've been training really hard, for sure, with Wade Eastwood, who's the stunt coordinator on the movie, who's incredible and who's worked on the previous movies as well. And with Sam Eastwood, who happens to be his wife, but who's been training me too. I've been doing some Pilates with her, some core workouts. I mean, like, to make sure that I don't injure myself, and some sprints, some runs in the park uphill. So that's hard, and of course fight training with the stunt crew, doing some kickboxing, boxing. Any kind of fight training. And also we wanted to find the style of the character, so they wanted to see what I was good at, what I was better at, and we kind of shaped the fight style of the character depending on what I could bring. And also, before getting cast in the movie, I was training also with a martial artist called Jason Noviello, who used to be a stuntman, so he taught me a lot of things martial arts wise. McHugh is incredible to work with, and he's so smart. He's such a good writer, and he's also, I'm so impressed by the fact that he's such an incredible writer, but he can convey so many emotions by actually not making us speak, by the placement of the camera, the angle, the way he directs us, even physically. And it's going to be the composition of the frame. He has such amazing taste with how to compose, how to move things around within the frame, and that gives power to a character or a different emotion.
Hayley plays her character equal to all the other characters. She brings enormous wit and humour and intelligence. There's a lightness to her, and obviously this is her character, but this is also Hayley. It's phenomenal being around such a quite scarily smart and witty woman, and she needs to be. You need to be on this set. You need to find your character. I remember one of my first meetings with Chris, and he said, to be able to be a part of this mission team, you need to figure out who you are in this constellation of people. Not only your character, but actually your character on set. And she found her straight away. And I think Chris and Tom and all the producers did very well when they chose not only her, but Pom as well. Everyone has an individual plan to how they like working and how they like building up. It's not just building up body and muscle, etc., but it's actually repetition, it's muscle memory, there's so much into it. It's not just creating a shape of your body. It's actually about being able to have the strength to do what you need to do. And that is not only stunt work. Stunt work is coordination, it is the fight moves, the looking good whilst punching, it's for camera, it's camera punching and camera kicks. What I've understood of this film, and what I've understood working and listening to McHugh throughout the films we've worked together, he's always been growing into wanting to deep dive into the darkness of each and every character. I love the fact that every time there's a scene with a woman or a man, but we're discussing women right now, it's how do we make this person interesting? Who is this person? It's not just about making the women strong and the men strong, it is finding the character within. And that brings us back to the fact that Chris and Tom are extremely character driven. And that makes me proud. McHugh has managed throughout the times and the years of working with Tom, not just with Mission, but with all the other films that he's done, found this ingredients, found this relaxation and leaning back. As he himself said, he leans back and lets the story just unfold in front of him. I love bringing Ilsa to life with Chris McQuarrie, with Wade, with Tom, with Sam, with everyone that has, and Lucy, everyone that's been involved to help create the character with physical, emotional aspects. But one of the best things is the fact that I get to do all of the stunt work. I keep on coming back to that. I mean, what stands out from any different sort of film that I've done is the fact that she's so unpredictable, and with that unpredictability and that sort of the need for self-guidance or line, she walks her own way, she walks her own path.
All these great places that we've been to, whether it's Abu Dhabi or Venice or Rome, they let us have the run of the place, which was incredible. So you're filming at these magnificent places you've always heard or been to, but you've heard about. So you find yourself in Venice in these alleyways, and the claustrophobic nature of it adds such tension to the piece. We're jumping over canals, running over bridges, and it just, to me, it adds, what you're looking for is a visceral quality, a quality that the audience is there with you. And that's, again, to come back, that's one of the keys of this whole franchise. When you actually see it, when you actually see Tom do what he does, risk his life for a film, it's beyond anything I'd seen. Because, he's not a stunt man, he's an actor. And then when you see him do it, I think, again, use that word visceral, you see him on the motorcycle, on the motorbike, you see him actually jumping. There is no CGI. That's where people, I think, they're going to be amazed. It's nothing short of amazing. I mean, he did the stunt over, he did the jump over and over again, and it never got old. It never got old, because he's right there, whizzing by on a chopper, waving to us. You remember, waving to us, and then he would do these practice runs where he just would jump, and I think he has 1.2 seconds if anything goes wrong, 1001 to course correct. So in its 7 seconds to the bottom of the bowl. It's like nothing I've ever seen. We were able to do something that you couldn't do on green screen. There's just no way you could capture what we were capturing up there on that train. They don't make movies like this anymore. They just don't do it. And these guys continue to find a way to do this. And it's as exciting as anything I've done, because whether you're doing an independent or whether you're doing the biggest action film that there's going like this, you're still trying to have moments of connection. And so when you're talking to Tom and you know that anything could happen at any moment, you could fall off the train, it's there. So you're just in the moment with him, It's as good as it gets.
It's always lovely to get back into this sort of family because, I've been in it for 15 years, and obviously I've known Tom for a long time and Ving as well, both. And so it's always a reunion when we see each other, and it's always a delight. And we always get very excited. We talk a lot about crushing it. We do a lot of fist bumping and giggling, and it's lovely, and but then also to welcome in new people. And we were straight off into locations, so we were in Norway and Italy, and that time we were all spent in a hotel together. And because of COVID protocols, we all had to kind of eat in a dining room. So we spent so much time together. So we all bonded very quickly. So the new family expanded at quite a alarming rate. If the audience see Tom actually doing something, it's so much more effective than using VFX. I think you can make anyone do anything these days. You see these big super creatures having fights with each other and punching each other all over the sky, and you're just like, meh. If you see someone actually doing it, and you know that they're doing it, there's an added degree of tension there. There's a frisson that you have of like, oh my God, they did that. So when people watch Tom go off that cliff, they won't only be thinking about Ethan, on his mission. They'll be thinking, that's actually Tom. And that adds something to the experience of watching the movie because there's genuine jeopardy. McHugh just has a really great understanding of the source material, and he would be the first to kind of admit that he has grown as a director since Rogue Nation, and he just really understands what this is. He knows how to tell stories. He's an expert at that. Him and Tom collaborate beautifully. They have a great understanding of each other, and they really respect each other, and it's great to see them sort of work together. The Mission films are big movies, and the scope of them, the way McHugh shoots them, the way they're lit, the way they're staged, it begs to be seen on as big a screen as possible. Not only that, the experience of watching a film like this with a whole group of people and sharing the emotion of it, it's a huge part of how much you enjoy the film, I think. You can watch a film on your own and love it, but there is something that you get from watching a film with a whole group of people, and all of you gasp at the same time, and all of you laugh at the same time, and you jump at the same time, and you look over at people you don't know, and you're all experiencing this crazy thing. The relief, the terror. I remember when I watched Fallout with Angela Bassett and Henry Cavill. We watched it together in a cinema, and I just held on to Henry's bicep for the entire film because I was so scared. It's the people. It's the community of cinema. That is what is important. And this experience, Mission Impossible, when it's so tense and so exciting and so enjoyable, and you're so invested in the characters because you know them so well, it's a really lovely shared experience to have.